Now for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning, let's bring in Arise analyst Dr. Constance Ikwokwo. Good morning, Dr. Constance.
Yes, good morning. I'm lost for words. Yolanda and Vimbai and Wenga. We're going to start this segment on a sad note, and we'll observe a moment of silence for our colleague, Somtochukwu Maduagu, who tragically lost her life in an armed robbery incident at her home. May her soul rest in peace. She was a young woman and a vibrant colleague here. And may her memory continue to shine as a reminder of a life full of promise that was taken too soon. Condolences to her family. Okay, we'll begin this segment to our stories. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin by looking at This Day newspaper. In This Day today, as we promised yesterday, that we will be watching closely the rift between Dangote Refinery and Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASSAN, with considerable consequences for the country. We'll take the story. Court restrains PENGASSAN, NNPC, others from cutting oil, gas supply to Dangote Refinery. And if we go to Guardian newspaper, it leads with this headline. Gas use has grown as PENGASSAN strike crashes power generation exports. Also, court stops PENGASSAN from disrupting Dangote Refinery. Business leaders warn of sabotage as strike cripples production, threatens stability. And in another report in New Telegraph, if we can pull that up, the paper says FG underestimated the gravity of the strike, which signals a government always caught napping. Disruption everywhere with this strike. The meeting between Dangote Refinery, PENGASSAN, and the federal government dragged on yesterday. Vimbai, what more do we know about this?
Well, what we do know is that, of course, the court has spoken through Justice Emmanuel Siblim, of the National Industrial Court to restrain PENGASSAN from shutting down anything concerning supply. But what we know is that they had proceeded with the shutdown nevertheless, and we know that NNPC has been affected, NUPRC, it has affected the entire ecosystem. So we'll now wait to see whether today they will adhere to that court order. But nevertheless, the general consensus around this is that there's an overreach in unionism here, because the union has the fundamental right to go on strike. Absolutely. Every individual has that absolute right. However, striking does not tantamount to blocking economic activities in a move that is more or less economic sabotage. We know that yesterday the national electricity output crashed to 2,700 megawatts. Load shedding has increased. Of course, we know that there's no way that has true 100% electricity. However, we know that that capacity has now been reduced across the country, and this is of course because of the gas shutdown. However, if you look around the filling stations, they still, I'm not sure other parts of the country, but here in Lagos, there aren't any queues yet. However, what you see is a lot of panic buying. Now, this is terrible optics. It's terrible for, the message that we're sending out to our investors. And it's also terrible for all of the economic interventions that the government is making. Just as I said yesterday, why is this terrible for optics? Because investors will ask themselves, does Nigeria have a rule of law? What is the ease of doing business? What is the likelihood that if I have a run-in with the unions in Nigeria, that they will not attempt to sabotage my business because of a disagreement? The National Industrial Court exists for this purpose. And, I think the unions are overreaching here. They've overstepped and they've stepped into the realm of illegality. Now, if you remember last time there was a meeting between Dangote and PENGASSAN, I had critiqued the fact that, you know, DSS had been present. But at this point, it's now looking like more of an issue of a national economic sabotage. So the security agencies do need to get involved because the entire nation cannot be held ransom by these unions. And the other issue is that as much as unionism is a noble cause, the concern is that the Nigerian brand of unionism that we've started seeing seems to be shrouded by other elements, by love for power, by corruption, by, you know, a number of other political elements that are highly concerning.
Yes. Well, Vimbai, I'm not sure whether using the word overreach is correct because Nigerian unionism is not that different. I mean, have you seen the strikes in France? I mean, they are always on strike in that country and some other places. The fact remains that, yes, we have issues with the way that strikes are carried out, but labor laws are important and the rights of workers are very, very important. Let's not forget that. And
absolutely, but Dr. Constance, the unions do not have the right to sabotage economic activity. Absolutely not.
Yes.
That is not enshrined in the Constitution.
Absolutely agreed. I just want to chime in here with what Vimbai is saying. I totally agree with your point. Very, very valid. You know, there's a very thin line between, you know, standing your ground and standing for the rights of workers and, you know, what's happening now, which looks like a power tussle. It looks like, you know, if you make certain decisions that we don't like, we will take certain actions. And who is suffering for it? It's the people at the end of the day.
All right,
so
let's
I'm
leave it
definitely on Vimbai's side with this one.
Okay, it's not about side now. All of us, you know, are important for
are
unions.
affected.
Okay, let's leave it.
We're in this together and we want the strike to end. Let the issues be resolved.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody wants the issue to be resolved. Second story in this day, very important news item as well. Tinubu considers Amupitan to succeed Mahmoud Yakubu as new INEC chairman. Ojo Amupitan's son is also a professor like Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. Yakubu was supposed to have left office in June but had to stay for a suitable replacement to be found. Under Professor Yakubu's tenure, we know that some innovations were introduced, such as the bimodal voter accreditation system BVAS, results viewing portal IREV, which allowed for transmission of results from polling units to INEC server. I mean, we'll have to then look at his performance when he goes. His tenure, especially the 2023 elections, which were marked by controversy, and he will be leaving office under a cloud of mistrust with his tenure marked by allegations of bias, irregularities, complicity in flawed elections. It has been remembered as a new arbiter of democracy. As we await the confirmation of a new INEC chairman, a big job is ahead of him if he's appointed. And Benga, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the shivers, the deep concerns and the interest overs round the nation's electoral integrity and overall the sanctity of the ballots. We can't afford to miss it because the beauty of democracy is the credibility of the electoral process. And that's what they call leadership recruitment. So if that process is flawed, like we've had litany of flaws in the past electoral cycle, it has continued to question the quality and the integrity of our democracy. The INEC should be the temple of elections, and it has to be strengthened. What happens to the Justice Uwe's report of 2007, which called for an independent and transparent process of appointing a new INEC chairman? I think the time has come for us. We have about barely 2 years away to that all-important general election 2027, though we have the Anambra and some pocket of off-cycle elections that would stand as a litmus test for the nation's democracy and the quality of and credibility of our elections. But I think we have enough time. SERAP, Yaga Africa, many of the CSOs have been mounting pressure on the president to state clearly, in clear terms, what is the process of appointing a new INEC chairman. Because in a situation, it would be clearly disingenuous to find a president solely appointing an INEC chairman that would not be loyal to him. But be that as it may, there are some other indices, like the strengthening of the INEC results viewing portal, IREV, where we could have a live transmission of results. So at that point, it becomes a little inconsequential with the INEC chairman if the institution is strengthened. So the issue is moved from that of individual to that of institution. So I think that we should concentrate more on the need to strengthen INEC as an independent agency handling a crucial assignment like the political transition of a nation come 2027.
Yeah, we have indeed been discussing the possibility of having an INEC that is independent. However, we haven't taken the active steps towards achieving that. So I don't see that happening before 2027 if the president appoints...
If I may just chime in.
If the president appoints...
Sorry, very quickly.
Let me land, please. If the president appoints this new person, you know, the feeling or the general sentiment is that he will probably work for the party, and that's what it is. You can come in now, Vimbai.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. So Professor Josh Ojo Amupitan, who is a SAN, Pro-Chancellor of Joseph Ayo Babalola University, Deputy Vice-Chancellor, University of Jos. What I found quite intriguing about his profile is that he specializes in the law of evidence. And one of the biggest challenges we've had in our electoral system, especially post-electoral with our disputes, is the issue around which evidence is permissible and in what format is it supposed to be used. We've had some cases where the BVAS has been rejected. Some courts have said they want the machine itself. Some courts are saying that you should extract the data out of the machine. And then we also have challenges where INEC also reformats or reconfigures the BVAS machines themselves before these court tribunals have reached their natural conclusion. So I think for me, I'll be interested, although it's still in the realm of speculation whether Professor Amupitan will be the man for the job, I think it would be quite intriguing to see a man who specializes in the law of evidence and seeing what insight or if there's any direction that he would contribute with regards to this very contentious issue that concerns post-election disputes. And then very lastly, the fact that he's from Kogi State, you know, I think that's an interesting development because many people had already said that the president was going to choose somebody from the Southwest. And of course, you know, him being from the North Central, but does it make any difference? As you've both already said, at the end of the day, it comes down to the reforms. Will there be the genuine political will to see any type of reforms before 2027? I mean, highly unlikely, but let's see if this man succeeds and if he will end up being a man of high integrity and credibility as he has been poised to be.
Yeah, Vimbai, since you mentioned...
Allow me to chip in this, so sorry.
Yeah.
Why I'm clamoring for a strong institution is that Professor Amupitan might be a strong and renowned professor of evidence, we all know that. But remember that about over 50 resident electoral commissioners will be resigning very soon. And also about over 20 national commissioners are also leaving the agency very soon. So when you look at that, the loss of experience is what we should be concerned about, because Amupitan will not be all over the country. So we need to strengthen the INEC technology, the INEC capacity to handle a credible election. It's very, very important in our democratic process.
A quick take on what you said regarding the region he comes from, that he comes from Kogi State, which is in the north. He's still ethnically a Yoruba man, and that's part of what we've seen. Yes, that's what we've seen with the tactic of the president. I mean, his critics will come back again and
technicality.
Say,
a Yoruba man from North Central.
Yes, we said it. That's what he's doing, but you know, he has to answer to it. All right, let's move on to Daily Independent. Yolanda, I'd like you to come in here. Nigeria at 65, FG lists Tinubu's feats, urges unity, collective participation as Nigerians to set aside divisions, work to build nation. This ask officially was made by the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, during an address to commence the commemoration of the country's 65th independence anniversary. Well, it's inconceivable to see statements such as this urging for unity when in actual fact, In many activities, politicians have succeeded and continue to succeed in dividing the population. The last 12 years of the All Progressives Congress has seen very divisive acts that, have left the country, or has left the country more polarized and disunited than ever. So what we are threading is on a path that doesn't seem to be about unity at all. And at 65 also, ideally it should be a moment of pride, of fulfillment of our dreams and aspirations. But there are lingering questions and many struggles yet to be addressed, Yolanda.
Well said, Dr. Constance. At 65, we should be celebrating a lot more than what we have to celebrate at the moment. You know, this report was talking a lot about the achievements that President Tinubu has accomplished in the country so far, but it's really difficult to see the value in that in the midst of all the trouble that is going on in the nation. You know, we have such high levels of insecurity, and, you know, just recently, last week, you know, there was the statement that was given at the UN General Assembly about how Nigeria was vying for a seat on the Security Council, and many people, you know, were just backlashing at this and saying, how can we be asking for a seat when we can't even, you know, weather the storm that we currently have in Nigeria?
Then you have to put your house in order before launching globally. Absolutely,
and that's just one of many other issues that the country is facing right now. You know, we have the issue yesterday. We had a guest when we were speaking about food security in the nation. It's a lot. You know, the prices of things just keep increasing. Inflation just keeps going high, and as well, even you know, our borders are so porous. So many issues and so little to show for it. We've been also talking about, you know, the subsidy. I think we had a report earlier on where it was actually saying that it has been abated, but people are not seeing this. The everyday person is not actually seeing these results in our everyday living. So it's really difficult to be in a celebratory mood and to just see the positive in it, because we're surrounded by so much negative that is going on in the economy right now.
All right, at 65, some progress made, but a very still long way to go.
Absolutely.
Let's move to Vanguard newspaper. 2027, no automatic ticket for Jonathan in PDP. And also, let's pull up Leadership newspaper. Jonathan free to run, but Nigerians recall his failures, according to the presidency. In regard to no automatic ticket for former President Goodluck Jonathan, the Gbenga Hashim Solidarity Movement says he should emerge through an open and transparent process. This was in response to Professor Jerry Gana's enthusiastic announcement that Jonathan will do well on PDP platform in 2027. Hashim also said that Nigerians are not eager for the old order to return. It's true that processes and the primaries of parties should be transparent, and people should emerge, or the right candidates should emerge through this process. But we also know how it goes, that they're always seeking consensus or persuading opponents to step down for the other candidates. Again, the elections are 2 years away, but we can also talk about how, in general, the parties woefully fail to run a true democratic system. And if you cannot do that within your party, you're not able to discipline yourselves, you're not able to run the party efficiently. How do you do that when you come into power? Gbenga, you can jump in here, please.
Yeah, I think this shows the state of disarray the PDP had fallen into, with the soul of the party shaking to its very foundation. That's the state. I think it is a show of desperation when you wake up just early and you feel you could pick on a candidate without a proper induction process. What I mean by this is that Section 84 of the Electoral Act 2022 specified the processes of primaries, which is very integral in the nation's internal democracy, and most parties' internal operations should follow this, and that's the direct, indirect, and the consensus mode of primaries. So if the PDP wants Jonathan, but we also saw the body language recently last week when President Jonathan made a visit with former Senate President David Mack.
Yes, and
with details.
quickly, if I can come in here, Jonathan is really coming on strongly, and a lot of people are in support of him and really want him to come back. I mean, that's what the plans of what is going on behind the closed doors.
There's no doubt about that. The signs, the telltale signs are showing. But as someone who wants to govern the country, who wants to preside over a country like Nigeria, we expect a bold statement from him. Yes. Indicating his intention to run. We've seen a lot of the undercurrents. We've seen a lot of the...
Maybe it's too early to do that.
Sign language. Okay, well, let's assume that he's still making consultations. But to just pick... Because we need to be careful of how we hit up the polity. Perhaps the way Professor Jerry Garner had presented Goodluck Jonathan might have also inflamed some interest within the rank and file of the party. But be that as it may, it also indicates the beauty of democracy, where you could have robust dialogue, robust conversation, and also consultations. And so on the kind of leaders we want. I think it's just a part of the build-up towards a major political transition that we have now. So I think comments are welcome, as much as it doesn't come with hate speeches. So I think it's in line.
And when the presidency says that he ran the country aground, I don't think that's exactly correct.
No.
Vimba, if you can jump in, yes.
Yeah, so this is the point I want to come in at. The first part of this for me is I think Nigerians need to be careful, as all, developing democracies need to be careful of getting stuck in the cycle of protest voting. Because, often you find yourself in a situation you don't like the leadership and you just give a protest vote to whoever looks like the figure who looks closest to a messiah. Yeah. So I think it's important for us not to completely whitewash Goodluck Jonathan, who had his own achievements, but he also had his own flaws during his administration. Because if you remember, as of 2005, former President Obasanjo had done a great deal in cancelling our debt as a nation with the Paris Club. But if you look at Yaradua Jonathan combined, that debt went up by 305% during that tenure. Under President Buhari, it went up by 792%. So in that, I also think it's disingenuous for the APC to come and say that, Goodluck Jonathan put us in the mess that we're in, because this is a collective effort. Getting us to where we are is a collective effort. However, what I think is noteworthy is the disclaimer that, he should be careful about being lured into the PDP, because I'm not sure the PDP really has its house in order in the moment. Of course, we've heard, I think this should be the second or third time we've heard Professor Jerry Garner, make this vote of confidence for Goodluck Jonathan joining and being the candidate for the PDP. However, the question is, the PDP, have they put their house in order?
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Let's move quickly to New Telegraph. Anxiety as Chinese, Lebanese corner Nigeria's 15 trillion naira freight forwarding sector. Findings revealed that 90% of this sector has been suddenly cornered by foreigners, especially Asians, including Chinese, Indians, and Lebanese. Nigerians in the sector, which is capital intensive, have been muscled out due to poor funding. Yeah. The federal government's ease of doing business policy opened the door for foreigners who deployed resources to outmaneuver indigenous investors. Suggestion was made in this article that for indigenous freight forwarders to gain control, they need adequate funding. I mean, reading this, my first thought was, it's not surprising. Foreign investors usually come with stronger financial backing and access to international capital, as well as advanced technology and easier access to credit, which gives them a competitive edge. Compare that with local investors who face high borrowing costs, limited government support, and weak infrastructure. They cannot compete. Can you imagine trying to compete with Chinese companies that are funded heavily by their government? So I don't know what the government wants to do with this, but it's an obvious imbalance. It's an economic story. Vimba, less than a minute here, please.
Very quickly, and I hope somebody else will also make an input, but when I read this story, they said one of the biggest issues was that this is a capital-intensive industry, and that our local players simply don't have the access to capital to be able to scale up, to even attempt to compete with some of these international companies, Chinese, Lebanese, and Indian companies. And again, this always comes back to our interest rates, our fight with inflation, all the indices we're trying to balance out in our macro economy, and goes back to the cry from the private sector to say, okay, if interest rates are not going to come down, then can the Bank of Industry come forward and give us single-digit interest loans? What are the interventions that are being provided to private sector to be able to compete favorably with other players, international players on their own home ground?
Yeah, and he who has the money is he who makes the rules.
Right.
You know, we have the odds stacked against us. We had a similar report some time ago with Ghana when they were doing a similar thing, but they were pushing for their locals to be in places of power. How are we able to make the rules to change how things are in these areas when we cannot even afford to dominate that industry?
All right.
I think
we have to leave it there, Gbenga, please. We are pressed for time. There's Daily Trust. We couldn't reach that. That was part of Tomi's shadow government, which has been declared unconstitutional. And also there was that story in Daily Sun, a running story, court restraints back from paying out Osun local government allocations. And of course, PDP, blame PDP if Governor Mba dumps party, according to S-Party chair, which really, can you blame the PDP? You see, you have all the governors groveling at the feet of the president and the APC taking over. So this is an inroad into the Southeast and international papers. Let's just take the Daily Telegraph. Trump to govern Gaza with Blair. President vows to bring eternal peace to the Middle East with his 20-point plan. And the Financial Times, Labour opens door to budget tax rise as Reeve appeals for fiscal discipline. Yolanda, a minute, please.
I think that Trump has been inching towards bringing Tony Blair into the picture for a while now. We've been seeing this in recent reports, and it's only now that it's being brought up, now that we have this 20-point ceasefire deal. And, at the UN, out of 164 countries, we have 10 countries that voted against a UN resolution supporting the creation of Palestine. And that just says a lot to where the world stands and what the world feels concerning this entire ceasefire. Some critics are saying that what does Netanyahu have over Trump to make him, stand by him the way that he is right now? Is there more to the story that will unfold with time?
Powerful Jewish lobby in the United States.
Yes, absolutely. And Trump as well, he was quoted from that meeting saying that Palestinians need to take responsibility for their destiny. This was such a harsh thing to say and almost inconsiderate, considering that this is practically a genocide that is going on in real time.
All right, those were your headlines this morning. Thank you for viewing.